Hi everybody, I hope you are all well. It's been 2 weeks since you last saw me, and I have just realised that I am wearing the exact same hoodie as I was wearing 2 weeks ago. Yes, I have washed it, just in case you were ever wondering. I don't usually do that though, because it's cool, it's winter, I need something that's warm and that will make me feel comfortable, so there we go, you've got 2 reviews in a row with me wearing this hoodie. So what have I been up to these past couple of weeks since you last saw me? I have been, life, work, everything as usual. I have been still obsessively watching The Artful Dodger. I've been needing Disney Plus to announce a second series for weeks now. Please, Disney Plus, get around and just put me out my misery. If it's not going to happen, just tell me. Just tell me. I need to know. Also, The Traitors UK Series 2 has been absolutely fantastic. That finished on Friday, and yeah, I've been obsessively watching that after I fell in love with the first series last year. But last year, I started watching it after it finished, so I got to binge watch it. This year, no, I have to watch along like everyone else, 3 episodes a week, and then you have to wait ages for the next 3 episodes and so on. But yeah, that finished on Friday, it was really great. And earlier this week, I finally got to experience something that I have waited 20 years for. In that, for my birthday, June last year, Mum and Dad got me tickets to see Wicked at the Bristol Hippodrome. I've never visited the Bristol Hippodrome. I've been to Bristol loads of times, but never been to the Hippodrome. And I've never had a chance to see Wicked. This is only the 3rd time that it's toured, and each time that it's toured, I haven't been able to see it. So Mum and Dad, bless them, got me tickets, and I went to Bristol Hippodrome earlier this week with my mum and watched it, and I constantly cried. It was ridiculous. I loved it so much. Unfortunately, there was a technical issue which meant that Glinda couldn't fly in her bubble in the first act, and Elphaba couldn't defy gravity either. But my God, I didn't care. It was incredible. And Laura Pick, oh my God, fucking hell, she was incredible as Elphaba. I couldn't believe that woman. She was just a sensation. Oh God, yeah. So if you're able to see it, get a ticket for the Wicked UK tour. It's fantastic. Anyway, other than all of that, I have been reading the second book in the Ken Follett Century Trilogy, Winter of the World, and I am here to review it. Now, just as last time, I'm not going to be necessarily explicit about plot and such, simply because this is a trilogy of book which is following multiple families for a century. So I will mention characters who I particularly liked reading in this particular book, but I'm not going to explicitly say X, Y, Z, because if I do, that's going to spoil plot, and obviously later down the line it could have something so there was stuff that happens in the first book that you don't necessarily think are going to be a big deal, which end up being a big deal in the second book. So this is why I'm like, okay, if I'm vague, I think that's better, so I am just going to say that. So there you are. So the first book covered from 1911. Yes, it was 1911, and then the first chapter is 1911, and then the second chapter jumped to 3 years later, and covered about 25 years. So, actually, no, I think it was more like 21, 22, because I can't remember if it was 1932 or 1933 it ended. It might have been 32, because this starts at 33 and goes all the way to 49, so quite a span. And as you can imagine, because we are following multiple families over the course of 100 years, there were a lot of babies born and such in the first book, and I did say in my last review, I wonder if he's going to do the same thing, because obviously we need the line to continue into the third book. And yes, like nearly every single woman in this book who is a key feature and such, got pregnant once or multiple times to produce offspring to then go play into the third book. Last book, I pointed out a particular character, Billy, who we met at the very beginning. He's our lead for the first chapter, and then, follows through, as I said, over 20 years of his life. And in a way, we had the exact same thing with this book, with that kind of structure, in that instead of Billy, we had Carla, whose parents we met and we witnessed her birth and everything in the first book. She is the opener of the second book, and she closes it as well. The first book closed with multiple characters being at an event. I'm not going to say what that event was because obviously spoilers, but the second book clearly ends with Carla. It opens with Carla, it ends with Carla. So she is one of many lead characters, but she is our opener and closure of the book. So I kind of feel like she is the lead character. And my God, I loved her. I absolutely loved Carla. So what I love about Ken Follett is that he has absolutely no problem with writing women in a realistic way. I love the fact that he sees all his characters as characters and also as people. So people who are, or characters, should I say, who are not the nicest. It's not just a case of, oh, I'm going to be the man who's just going to wah and twirling mustache, all of that lot. I am intrinsically evil. Da, 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 da. No, they have a reason why they do the actions that they do, and he explores that so well through these two books that I've read so far. I love also the fact that he has absolutely no problem in making his women to be a kind of morally grey, as it were, or possibly evil characters, just as he has no problem doing that with men. Now, male authors, I spoke about this in the first book because there was a lot of emphasis on women's rights and the role of women and such, especially obviously with the First World War, with all, well, not all, but most men in the UK were sent overseas to fight and such. It meant there were loads of jobs that needed to be filled, so women filled those roles. And then obviously the end of the First World War, when those men came back, it was the question of well, what does that mean for women now? We've proved our worth, so let us continue to prove our worth. And the suffragette movement and such, it was so women's rights and such, and the role of women was very big in the first book. And I did wonder, okay, what's he going to do in the second one? And having Carla to be a woman, obviously, and being one of our key players who both opens and closes the books, I thought was a great move, because he could have chosen one of the other many babies who were born in the first book to be the lead. And to be honest, Lloyd, the character Lloyd, I think would have been quite an interesting one given what happens with him in the second book. But instead he chose a woman, and showing the war through a woman's eyes, a woman who has come of age when the Second World War, well, not quite come of age because she's 11 in 1933, but she comes of age during the course of it all, and goes through such horrificness to come out as this strong powerhouse of a woman who I would feel, well, first of all, absolutely astonished she'd be friends with me. if she were to be. But I would find it a privilege to be her friend, to be honest. I think to go through what she has gone through in her second book, my God, that is strength. I love the fact that Ken shows that the horrors of war is not just in the trenches. It is in a lot of areas, and she turns into a woman who is a badass. She is a powerhouse and should be someone who is respected for all of that crap. And she doesn't see herself as anything heroic, but she's a hero for things that she did during the war. And it also emphasizes the fact that when like nursing roles and such, because she is a nurse and helping soldiers, it was pretty much the nurses training was, oh, you're probably, I don't know, around 14, 15, that's fine. Put on this uniform, we're going to show you like basics of how to heal wounds. Now deal with this man who has been like split in half and had all of these horrific burns to him with no additional help, because there are hundreds of these men that we have to deal with and everyone's busy. Go. And how she handles herself in this book, my God, I think she's the one who learns the most, and maybe that's why Ken decided to open the book with her and close with her. But she is just wonderful. I love her. Now, as in the first book, we have all of our various characters have come from different countries. They have come from different social standings. And what I love about Ken Follett also is that he was, with his historical fiction, he has taken the time to do his research. As mentioned in the first review, that he will only write something if it actually happened, or if it is plausible that that person from history was in that particular country at that time, so this scene could have happened, even though we don't actually have historical evidence of it. And he has done so well with emphasizing in this book the major horrific stuff that happened in these home countries and such, that people either don't think about a lot or have gone, we'd rather not go there because it's too dark. And he goes, no, I'm going to slam it directly in your face. And that includes, and I just want to just put this out there just so that you are aware, includes things that could be seen as, that could trigger people, including rape and assaults and such. And the thing with Ken is that in some of his books, especially I'm thinking like Pillars of the Earth and such, when those are used as a form of destroying someone or putting someone in their place, it is historically accurate as well. So, and he can be quite graphic. It also depends on the character who is inflicting it. So what I mean by that, and I don't want to talk about it too long, obviously, is that, say, for example, there is a character who uses that abuse against a female character who is about 18, I think, at the time she is, very tragically, while her brother is forced to watch. And it is really quite explicit in Pillars of the Earth. In this book, it's rumoured that this stuff is happening, and then it happens to a character, but he is only explicit to a point, because then he goes, and then she disconnected from her mind what was going on and just let it happen, knowing that there was nothing that she could do. And that's how it ends. So in this book, that is used because it is historically accurate to what happened in that country at that time. And he is explicit to a point, and then he goes, right, stop. And I think the fact that because he's got so much going on in this book, he doesn't have time to spend on that explicit nature. So just so that you're aware, there is more triggering related stuff in book 2 than in book 1. But he's doing it because it's historically accurate. So just in case you are interested in reading these books. What else did I want to say? Oh, yes. Sorry, my mind went completely blank then. I have to say, I really love the fact also that he didn't just go, right, now that we're in the second book and we're following the children from the first book, I'm just going to stop referring to the older generations who you've already been through in a book. I'm not going to do that. Thank you, Ken. Because I was like, oh, but what about, hang on, can you just let me know how they're doing? It's just like almost like a round robin, you know, like you get at Christmas with some families going, oh, this person is this person is that. In some cases, in other cases, there were full chapters, like the kids having arguments with their parents, going, you don't control me, I'm an adult now, la, 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 la. And then they find out that their parent was actually kind of right and they should have listened. There was some really, there were some losses in this book that hit me fucking hard. Obviously characters die throughout these books. It's bound to happen. It's covering families for a century, so people are gonna die. It's inevitable. You cannot stop that from happening. But there were some where Ken just goes, nope, you're gone. And it just comes completely out of the blue, which obviously emphasizes the fact that that was real to the time, that there were bombings and all sorts going on in these various countries, and people died. And yeah, there were a couple of times I went, oh, that hurt. That really hurt, Ken. Oh, that... Now, just to explain something, I love the Kingsbridge series that Ken Follett writes. I adore those books so much. I am so excited to get the most recent book that came out in October, I think it was. But because I've got them all in paperback, I have to wait for the paperback. So I have to wait an additional year to read that book. Yay! So I am so excited to get a hold of that book and read it. But the thing with the Kingsbridge series is that each book, there's like 100+ years between each book. So we don't get to witness too many deaths of people, but you open the next book knowing, okay, everyone in the previous book is now dead, but you go, oh, but they had a long happy life or whatever. I'm okay with that. Whereas with this one, because he's doing a full century with families, we are going to witness the births and deaths of pretty much everyone who we're going to meet, and it gets tough, especially in the second one. I don't know why. I was just like, oh shit, I know these people are aging. I know that they're going to die, but I'm not ready to say goodbye to them. And like I said, some of them, they just came out of the blue from no, and some were really young. And it really emphasized how cruel war can be and how unfair it can be. And yeah, it doesn't just happen in trenches in France or wherever. It was very, very interesting. And the discussion of politics, because obviously politics is a big factor here. I love the fact that in some of the families in some of the countries, there were people obviously who were very anti-Hitler, and there were some characters who were like, yeah, Hitler's gonna change our country for the better and such. That is so important because it's realistic that there were people who supported him, and not just in Germany. It happened, and it's very interesting where it's talking about moral ambiguity as well in people, and not just obviously the historical characters, historical real life people. I'm talking about these characters that Ken Follett has made up for these books. Sometimes I go, okay, I get where you're coming from, but don't you remember that thing that happened in that first book that has made you have become the man you are to think about that. Now, are you really going to inflict that after remembering that? There is sometimes where I just wanted to slap people across the face, to be honest. But yes, this series continues to be really thought-provoking and evocative, but at the same time frustrating. But you need that frustration because of the balance of what is right versus what is wrong, or that thing of like the whole stuff to do with the atomic bomb. Yes, dropping this bomb is going to kill so many people, but it will mean that this X million people will survive. At least that's the question that gets put. So which is the lesser of two evils? It's just, the moral questions that Ken Follett asks in this book are really interesting, and I'm really impressed with how he managed to balance that. He's always been very impressive with his storytelling, with his use of using historically accurate events. I do have a little irk with this one, and this is the first time ever in the Ken Follett book I am saying this, okay? And I think it's because of the fact that he doesn't have gaps, as it were, between the books for generations. He's having to stick with the 100 years all the way through for each of these families. At times it got a little, and I mean little, soap opera-y. Now, I love drama. I love a good bit of drama in a story, in a family, but sometimes it just felt a little bit like, really. I was, when at the end of the previous book, when I read the back of the second book, because I didn't read it out or anything, because obviously character names and all that jazz, didn't want to do any kind of spoilers. It talked about families starting to interact with each other, and I was like, oh, okay, yay, okay, this is going to be really interesting. And it was interesting, and where they are right now is in a very intriguing position for going into the Cold War and onwards. But at the same time, it felt like a couple of people who had very, especially with the whole Daisy and Lloyd, because they're from two completely different families with two completely different thought processes, two completely different political sides. There's going to be clashes, and of course, there's going to be a bit over the topish. I kind of felt like to the point where these families were meeting, and I thought, oh my god, when is it? When are we going to have bitch slaps? When are we going to have being thrown down the stairs moment? It kind of felt a little bit like that. Luckily, it wasn't too bad in the end, but you know what I mean? Where it kind of just felt like, oh God's sake, we've fallen into a bit of a drama sphere, and I want to get out of that pretty quickly, and luckily it did. But yeah, so it did go a bit soap opera-y. I'm hoping that will not continue into the third book, but we are going for 1950s until 2008 in the next book. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, and obviously we're going to have like civil rights movements and the Cold War, the assassination of JFK and Vietnam, and there's gonna be a lot of stuff going on there. So I think there could possibly be some more of that. I don't know, but we shall see. But yeah, it's just, at times I was a little worried, and that's the first time ever in a Ken Follett book that I have felt like that, but I'm glad it pulled back pretty quickly. So yes, there are some moments that are a bit wobbly, and as I said, there are some moments that can be quite triggering in this book, but it didn't destroy how I felt about this book whatsoever. But it very much feels like the first book is the setup. This is the point where it's really going to start. It twists and there's some really dark emphasis stuff. And now I think we're going to go into, well, not the light, but a new door, almost like, right, okay, so the first book is the build-up of the storm. This is the big storm. And then the third book is going to see the end of the storm and then go into better, bluer skies. But as to if I think there might still be some dark clouds and thunder in there. There we go. That's the best way I can describe it off the top of my head right now. So those are my thoughts on Winter of the World, the second of the Century Trilogy by Ken Follett. So, would I read this again? Yes, I would. But as mentioned at the end of my previous review, obviously it would be if I was reading all of the trilogy again. And especially because this starts so directly after the end of the first book. He doesn't really give you like information to go, oh yeah, like Carla's parents are X and Y, they went through this or anything. No, you don't get that. So you need to know that information already. So you really do need to read these books one after the other. Would I read any more of Ken's work? Well, yes, of course, because it's Ken Follett. He's absolutely brilliant. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes, definitely, especially anyone who's interested in obviously the Second World War and how different countries responded to it, how the very realistic things that happened. And one realistic thing that just happened, which happened that I've just remembered right now, I will say it, but this obviously might be a bit upsetting for people. We had even things like people being hung from like lampposts and fences with signs around their necks saying coward and such like this, and it being normal to see that. You know, it's horrific period of history, but it's important that we recognize that these things happened and don't forget that those things happened. And Ken Follett writes those things in horrific, brutal honesty. And that's what you need. You need authors who will do that, and Ken does that brilliantly. So yeah, there we go. That's my thoughts on Winter of the World, the second book in the Ken Follett Century Trilogy. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment in the comment box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely to you side. And I'll be back with my review of the next book, which is the last one in the Century Trilogy, Edge of Eternity. As I said, this is going to span from 1950 to 2008. Again, it's another massive book, so I think it might take me a couple of weeks again. But after that, I've the book after this one, which I've already announced, is much thinner, so I think I will definitely be back with you within a week for that one. But yeah, I'll most likely see you in a couple of weeks time with my review of Edge of Eternity. All right, everyone, bye.